President Donald Trump embarks on his first major international tour of his second term. His stops in Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates mark a high-stakes attempt to strengthen economic ties, secure massive investments and present his administration as a force for regional stability. Notably absent from the itinerary is Israel, despite intense lobbying hinting at a reorientation of Washington's priorities. The recent release of Israeli-American detainee Edan Alexander following direct U.S.-Hamas talks facilitated by Egypt and without Israeli involvement further underscores this evolving approach. Meanwhile, the visit has also raised concerns in Washington. News of a Qatari plane to gift Trump a $400 million luxury jet has sparked concern among lawmakers. Several senior Democrats are calling for a Senate vote to censure the president, citing ethical questions and potential national security implications. I'm Hani Asif, and let's get in focus. U.S. President Donald Trump received a lavish welcome from Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, including a royal court reception, followed by a lunch with several U.S. billionaires like Elon Musk. According to Forbes, the goals of the visit are somewhat unclear, though it's expected to center around new economic investments rather than broader geopolitical strategy. Trump will next travel to Qatar to meet with Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, then to the UAE to meet President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan before returning to the US. Additionally, Trump is accompanied by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. And for more analysis, we're joined from Pennsylvania by Mr. Malik Francis, the member of the Republican Party. Mr. Francis, thank you for joining us here on Q News. Sir, President Trump has kicked off his second term's first foreign tour in Riyadh, echoing his first international trip in 2017. What message does this send about the shifting hierarchy in Washington's regional alliances, especially considering Israel was notably excluded?
Thank you for having me on Q News. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you. As we all know, President Trump is in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf area to bring money from the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and the Princes of Emirat and Qatar. He's not there to bring peace, as he promised during the campaign that he's the president of peace. Unfortunately, our friends and brothers and sisters in Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia don't watch TV and see how the children of Gaza, the Palestinian children, are starving. There is no water and no food. If President Trump is really serious about relationship with the Arab world, he could declare now that Gaza is free. The Israelis should cease fire and they stop killing the Palestinian children and women, allow food to get into Gaza right now, not tomorrow or after tomorrow. It's insane. And if President President Trump is really serious about peace, about the Abraham Accord, he's trying to get Saudi Arabia to normalize relationship with Israel. There is no peace. There will be never peace in the Middle East without solving the Palestinian problem. Everybody knows it. He should know it. All his advisors. Yes, maybe there are problems now between him and the war criminals, Netanyahu. But the issue here is the Palestinian people are starved to death by the Israelis. And it seems that our brothers and sisters in Qatar, Emirates, United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia, they close their eyes and they close their ears to the cries of the Palestinian children. This is unacceptable. This is war crime, and history will not be kind to any of them because, as you know, Egypt and Jordan, the only two nations that really are trying to help the Palestinian. But we need the President Trump's assistance by forcing the Israelis to stop massacring the children of Palestine, allowing the food to get into Gaza right now.
Mhm. Mr. Francis, now the Israeli officials reportedly lobbied hard for the inclusion of in Trump's itinerary, but failed. Does this reflect a growing rift between Trump and Netanyahu, or a broader recalibration in how the U.S. views his strategy? Are they re-examining, reassessing their strategy and their dynamics with Israel?
I think history is repeating itself. As you remember, in the 80s, when President George Bush, the father, was the president, Ishaq Shamir was the prime minister of Israel then, and he threatened George Bush that he will use the Israeli lobby to block everything George Bush sent to the Congress because as you know, the Israeli lobby is very powerful and they control the Congress, and the majority of the Republican senators and congressmen are pro-Israel and friends of Israel because they received millions of Israeli money for their election. And they unfortunately work against the interests of the United States. The interest of the United States is in the Arab world. President Trump is going to bring with him minimum $2 trillion and a beautiful gift, a very expensive gift, an airplane 747 from Qatar. It's illegal, it's unconstitutional, but as you are aware, that President Trump doesn't abide by the Constitution, doesn't respect any laws, and he's going to accept the gift, as he said yesterday. Israel costs us billions of our tax money, and they are really hurting our interests in the Middle East, in Europe, and all over the world. If the Israelis don't listen, President Trump should have the courage to tell them, if you don't listen, you don't stop massacring, you don't stop the genocide in Gaza, they cannot survive with us. He could stop really sending them money and military equipment. As you know, President Trump gave the war criminal Netanyahu the green light to destroy Gaza. And he wanted to kick the Palestinians out and to make it the Riviera of the Middle East. Yeah, President Trump doesn't think before he talks. Unfortunately, he is causing us too many problems. But fortunately, many of my Republican friends now are seeing the light that President Trump is hurting us, not helping us. He should come back to the United States and take care of the inflation, take care of the problems we have nationwide. America is divided because of him. He claims America comes first. America comes first when we work for peace, when we don't side with one, the wrong side against the other side. He's able to bring peace if he wants to. And he's lucky to have Steve Witkoff, his envoy, that he's Jewish. And he could communicate with the Israeli lobby in Washington, D.C., and convince them not to bring against President Trump if he pushes the Middle East peace process forward.
So we've seen the US recently bypass Israel in talks with Hamas, negotiating directly to secure the detainee release and the ceasefire. Now, is this a deliberate sidelining of Israel? Are we going to see more bypassing of Israel moving forward in the negotiations concerning Gaza?
I think so because President Trump wants to bring money from the Middle East. So he doesn't want any problem caused by the Israelis. And that's why he's avoiding going to Israel because he doesn't want to upset the Arab population. Therefore, he's avoiding the state of Israel. Now, Trump, as you know, gave the Golan Heights as a gift to the war criminal last term. He moved the embassy, U.S. embassy, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and gave Jerusalem, all of Jerusalem, to the Israelis. So he is a friend of Israel. Unfortunately, he has been working against the Middle East peace process. Yes, he got Qatar and United Arab Emirates to normalize the relationship with Israel. But the problem here is the Palestinian issue. Qatar and United Arab Emirates have no problems with Israel. They were talking behind the scene. They had different interests between the three of them. But here the issue is Palestine. And there will be no peace in the Middle East without solving the Palestinian people. And those people, unfortunately, they have been massacred, killed by everyone. They were massacred in Syria and Lebanon, in Jordan, and now by the Israelis. The Palestinian issue is the oldest problem in the world since 1948. Unfortunately, the Israelis have been killing them, oppressing them, stealing their land, and stealing their homes. And it seems that the Arab world is silent about it. This is unacceptable because if Netanyahu is not stopped, nobody could stop him. He will go into Jordan. He has about one third of Syria now. He is part of Lebanon. So nobody could stop him.
Hmm.
The Arab solution is the only solution for the Middle East, not all the Arabs, the Gulf states, and Saudi Arabia. Trump wants money from them. At least he should reciprocate. He should be kind. At least to stop the genocide in Gaza and allow food to get in. How could you see a Palestinian child, 4 or 5 years old, crying because there is no food? Some of them are eating dirt. One young girl said, "We cannot find even grass to eat anymore."
Hmm.
That's a war crime, and I honest to God, yani, when I think about it, I cry. Those guys,
Yes.
people for the past year and a half have been bombed every day. Everything was destroyed. And we are talking about it. Only President Sisi of Egypt, he's the one who's trying. And that's why President Trump is staying away from him. We should support President Sisi and King Abdullah of Jordan. Because if we work with them, we will be able to bring peace to that part of the world.
Well, other than Gaza, and despite Israel's concerns, Trump is engaging directly with Iran in nuclear talks. Could this suggest a more independent US approach that no longer uses Israeli interests as a baseline for regional policy?
Unfortunately, President Trump has been working for the Israeli interest. Why should Israel have nuclear weapons? Why should Pakistan has it, or India, or anyone? Why should we have it here in the United States or Russia or the Europeans? But because Israel is afraid of Iran, that's why Israel putting pressure on the Israeli and the American government, on President Bush, sorry, President Trump, to make sure Iran will never have a nuclear weapons. And the Iranian regime did say, hey, we're not going to have it. We're going to use it, use the program for civilian purposes only. And we're lucky to have Steve Witkoff because he proved to be a good negotiator and he's working for the interests of United States and of Iran, not
Hmm.
for the interests of Israel. And
Yeah.
that's what's good about him. Hopefully, President Trump will watch what he said, will think before he talks, because sometimes he causes problems more than solving the problems. Steve Witkoff stopped the war between Pakistan and India. He did a job. Witkoff could solve the problem between Ukraine and Russia and bring peace to the Middle East if President Trump stays at the White House and don't make any stupid remarks.
Mr. Malik Francis, the member of the Republican Party, thank you very much, sir, for joining us. The New York Times has reported that Trump is traveling to the Middle East with a primary focus on striking major business deals rather than pursuing traditional diplomatic goals. His 4-day tour includes stops in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar, where he aims to announce agreements valued at over $1 trillion in sectors like arms sales, artificial intelligence, energy, and aviation. The newspaper added that at the same time, Trump's family business interests are expanding in the region, with deals linked to Saudi and UAE-backed real estate and Gulf ventures. There are few signs of diplomatic initiatives on the trip. Trump has avoided Israel, partly due to tensions over the war on Gaza and his own cooling relationship with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Trump's trip, therefore, serves both as a political spectacle and financial opportunity, reflecting a presidency increasingly intertwined with private gain and regional power plays. And to shed more light, we are joined from Doha by Mr. Justin Thomas Russell, the Executive Director of the Global Foreign Policy Center of Washington. Mr. Russell, thank you for joining us. First off, the U.S. announced a $1.4 billion weapons sale to the UAE just before Trump's visit. How do you assess the strategic logic behind this deal? And can we say that Trump is at a crossroad at this stage where he visits the Middle East to strengthen economic ties, and at the same time, U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff is in Doha for ceasefire negotiations in Gaza? Will Trump's America First policy, U.S. economic interests clash with Netanyahu's intransigence to stop the war on Gaza?
Well, good evening, and thanks for having me as always. There's so many aspects to the Trump visit here to the Gulf states. What we're seeing here is a combination. You had mentioned the weapons sale to the UAE. Today, he also announced in the meeting with Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, he announced a big military strategic deal worth about $160 billion there. I think what he's doing is he's making deals to get what he wants. What he wants is added investment by the Gulf states into the United States. He'll probably get some of that. But what we have to look at is we have to look through this. The bottom line here is that the Trump visit, as far as today goes, other than one exception, has largely been memorandums of understanding and letters of agreement. There's no real teeth to that. What we have is a little bit jazz hands diplomacy going on. We're starting to see a little bit of meat behind the visit. President Trump just announced within minutes ago that he is going to be stopping sanctions against Syria, which is a big deal, which means that this has an opportunity to create an economic base and create Western investment into Syria. That's a big deal for Damascus and a big deal to adding some stability to the region. I completely applaud that. But other than that, we're not seeing anything real substantial other than some handshaking, some backslapping, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Trump's foreign policy now appears more focused on the economic deliverables than the traditional alliances. Now, top American CEOs joining Trump in Riyadh. Does this economic pivot risk sidelining long-standing political commitments like the support for Israel in its war on Gaza or pushing for peace deal between Ukraine and Russia?
Look, what Donald Trump is realizing right now, and I think what we're starting to see as a result of just the first few hours of Donald Trump's trip to the Gulf states, is that war and tension and global conflict is not good for business. He is a businessman in mind and spirit, and he wants to show the world that he's the best at that. I think what's happening is, we've seen tension rising with Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. Then, Benjamin Netanyahu is pushing back on Donald Trump's insistence that they start coming to a roadmap towards stopping the violence in Gaza. There's been pushback on that. The reality is that Donald Trump, in his mind, would love to be the great deal maker, the great peacemaker. He would love nothing more than to get a Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts. But the bottom line here is that this is bad for business, and he wants business, not only for the U.S. right now, but for long term, even for him and his family long term personally. The one thing I want to point out on this is, if you look at the organizations that are with Donald Trump in Riyadh right now, you look at Boeing, you look at Starlink, Tesla with Elon Musk, you look at General Electric Aerospace. A lot of the deals that they're talking about, these $160 billion business deals that are going back and forth right now in Riyadh that he's claiming, are stuff that they are already and have been already buying for years. For example, Starlink is already on board Qatar Airways. If they're going to use that as a new deal, that's not true. They're just continuing. If they're going to put it into Riyadh Air and Saudi Airlines, that might be a new deal, but they were going to do that anyway. You look at, for example, Boeing. They were already buying, and they're going to continue to buy Boeing aircraft. If they make an announcement that they're buying 10, well, that was probably already on the books. And this is just, again, jazz hands diplomacy.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Russell, I have to ask you now. Trump tours the Gulf. Reports have emerged of a proposed Qatari gift, a $400 million luxury jet intended for Air Force One use, and later as part of Trump's presidential library. Top Senate Democrats have raised concerns about the legality and ethics of this gift. Now, how do these concerns intersect with Trump's ongoing efforts to strengthen ties with Gulf nations during this regional tour?
Yeah. Let me just point out one thing. It's not just Democrats. Seeing some serious pushback coming from serious Republicans, like Florida Senator Rick Scott, Iowa Senator Josh Hawley. These are avid Trump supporters that are pushing back, saying optics on this look really bad. And it does. The reality is that Donald Trump looks like a gangster. He looks like a mafia boss. He goes into these places. He says, yeah, you're going to work with me, and this is how it's going to go down, and give me my dowry, give me my VIG. And all of a sudden, he's walking away with this brand new fancy luxury jet that he does not need to get personally. And the optics on it are horrible. What it looks like is pay-for-play diplomacy. Mm-hmm. That does not give us credibility in the global in the global community. If we are going to start seeing pay-for-play diplomacy based on what we're seeing with the aircraft deal, that's gonna come back and bite. That's gonna come back and bite Donald Trump and his administration in the rear end. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that there's some serious look that needs to be taken on that deal.
Mm-hmm. Sir, Trump's meeting today with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman comes with an emphasis on the mega investments, not security or diplomacy. Now, in your view, is Trump rebranding the U.S. role in the region as an economic partner rather than a security guarantor, putting aside the lifting the sanctions on Syria as well?
Here's the issue with your question, and it's a great question. I think we're going to be analyzing that for weeks to come. What we've got to look at is they are probably intertwined together. They are not mutually exclusive. What we are seeing is you give us and you invest in us and our ability to create manufacturing jobs, build out our infrastructure, all of that. You become one of our best friends in the world, and all of a sudden we'll be there to back you. I don't like the optics of that either. Again, it looks like pay-for-play diplomacy. You look at the relationship that the U.S. has had long-term, going back to the George W. Bush administration and the creation of base Al Udeid in Doha. That has been a central point of American military operations here in the Central Command area of operations.
Yes. That was Mr. Justin Thomas Russell, the Executive Director of the Global Foreign Policy Center of Washington from Doha. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this episode of In Focus. I'm Henny Safe. Stay tuned for more upcoming updates here on Q News.